Ohio also too early.
Georgia, lots to watch there. Too early to call. Votes are still coming in there. In Virginia, former battleground Vice President Biden is leading, but it is too early to make an official call there. And in Wisconsin, it is far too early to call. They have a lot of votes to count there.
And Pennsylvania, it's too early to call. Minnesota, too early. Same story in Maine. And Arizona, which I don't think we've seen any vote come out of Arizona.
Yeah, there's Maine and Arizona, which the polls closed about an hour ago. 85% of the voting is by mail in Arizona, and they're allowed to tabulate and count well before Election Day. But we await the great state of Arizona, my home state. And let's look at Kansas. Too early to call, but as expected, the president is leading. Now we've got some calls to make here at 10 o'clock. Iowa.
Iowa, first off, is too early. Nevada, too early.
Let's see what's going on in Montana. Not only do they have, of course, the presidential race, but a pretty competitive governor's race. Too early to call. Polls just closing there, and in Utah as well. Too early to call.
Let's look at the road to 270, the map, and show you where things break down right now. And right now, Biden with 89 electoral votes, Trump 72 on the road to 270.
Everybody kind of holding on to the states they were expected to hold on to. We haven't had any shockers yet, any flips. We do have something to report in the Georgia Senate race. There's actually 2 Senate races, and this one will advance to a runoff. Raphael Warnock there, the Democrat, having sufficient votes. We're projecting to get to that runoff, which will be held in early January. Chuck.
Right, and the question's going to be which one of Loeffler or Collins joins Warnock in there. By the way, a little nugget on Virginia that Mark Murray just learned. Virginia is the exact opposite. They've been only doing Election Day vote. They're going to count their early vote starting at 11 p.m. So if you're wondering what's going on with Virginia, that will tell you about Virginia. Texas, you noted why is Trump ahead? Well, I can give you one. I can get you one reason why he is. I'm going to take you to those Trump 2018 counties. These were counties that both Beto O'Rourke in that Senate race against Ted Cruz, where he made us think maybe Texas is a battleground state. I want to show you around the Austin media market here. Austin, Travis County is a huge, big Democratic center. So these 2 adjacent counties here. Beto won them both. But I want to take you to Hayes here, number 1. Biden's winning it by 12. Beto won it by 16. Again, Beto O'Rourke lost the state. But the point is, and this was something Casey Hunt was learning from her sources, that there appears to be that Biden, while doing pretty well, is underperforming, particularly in the Austin media market. And this shows you right here. It's another reason why we have classified Trump as leading. And by the way, speaking of leading, one place we want to take you is Ohio, and we've been showing you, remember Biden had the early lead. Well, the Republican vote is starting to come in. As you can see, the county map's getting redder, and the president now has a lead of about 100,000. You can see what we're seeing here, the early absentees. So right now we have a lot more Election Day vote. There's still some early vote to count. So we've got a long way to go in Ohio. We know it's about a 50-50 split, the early vote, which we know favors Biden, the Election Day vote, which favors Trump. So watch for our orange and yellow lines here to see if they become 50-50. But the yellow, anytime you see yellow, that's usually a pretty good sign for President Trump.
All right, let's bring in Kristen Welker now. She is at Biden headquarters. How are they feeling about the numbers and what we're seeing here?
Well, Lester, with Florida looking increasingly out of reach, of course, they are focused on North Carolina and on Georgia. One campaign official acknowledging that both of those states look very close. But this official telling me we still feel good. We still feel like we have a shot there. So they are focused on those 2 states. And then, of course, the Midwest, their blue wall. That is where they think that ultimately Vice President Biden will prevail. They are very interested in what they're seeing in Ohio. I've been talking to a number of officials in and out of the campaign, including to Democrats in Ohio, with one telling me that the turnout in some of those Democratic strongholds has been quite strong. And then in some of the swing counties, it looks like Biden is outperforming expectations. Why is that significant? Even if Biden doesn't carry Ohio, they believe it could have implications for the all-important battleground state of Pennsylvania. And that is really where we began this discussion tonight. Why has Biden spent so much time in Pennsylvania over the past several weeks weeks throughout the course of this campaign, because ultimately it could be make or break for Joe Biden with its electoral votes. That's why he was there today in Scranton and in Philadelphia, urging voters to turn out. Of course, back in 2016, the Obama coalition underperformed, and that's why Hillary Clinton fell short there. So he is trying to win that state back, and without Pennsylvania, very difficult for President Trump to return to the White House. So it is a critical state for him as well. Guys.
All right, Kristen, thank you. And that brings us to Jason Miller, senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Jason, it's good to have you with us. So far, it looks like the president is performing well in the states he has to win. He does have to contend with the so-called blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. How are you feeling about that?
Savannah, good evening. Feeling very, very good. I think Florida is a state that the president is definitely going to carry. Feel good about where we are with Georgia. We also feel good about North Carolina. I think we're going to win by somewhere between 50 and 70,000 votes. Also, when you take a look at some of the rural counties in Indiana, the way that we're performing with those small towns that are about 5,000 or less people, some of that can be extrapolated out and compared to, say, Wisconsin, Michigan. Looking at some of the rural areas, you look at Kent County in Michigan, for example, where we're increasing. So states where we have, or excuse me, counties where we have 75% or more of the vote in so far, we're increasing our margins in Michigan by between 6 and 7%. And I think that one of the big surprises, there are two big surprises, I think, so far. Number one, I think President Trump is going to win Minnesota tonight. You look at the way the data is trending. We feel very good about that state. That's going to be a big shock to Biden and I think to a lot of folks, since we haven't won that since 1972. But the biggest story of the night so far, Black voters and Latino voters helping to power President Trump forward, and I think will be the big difference in him being reelected tonight.
I know everything seems positive, but tell me the kind of thing that you started this evening wringing your hands over that still sits out there that you worry about.
Well, fundamentally, keep in mind that Democrats knew that they were going to have this early vote, the absentee votes. And so we actually saw a lot of those early votes the same way that the Democrats did. What we thought, though, was different is that we would have this red wave, folks who would actually show up on Election Day, and the Democrats essentially had already cannibalized all of their votes. People who are likely Democratic primary voters who were going to vote, and people who wanted to vote against President Trump basically did that right at the beginning of the early vote period. So we feel, so we're kind of concerned a little bit about that, but it looks like our models, our predictions for the turnout are looking to be right on track. And Democrats basically shot their wad in the early vote. They just don't have it right now. And that's the difference in the enthusiasm factor.
You ready
our
to
folks are going to show up on Election Day. Theirs aren't.
Are you ready to claim North Carolina on your map?
I think that we will win by between 50 and 70,000 votes. So that's where we're tracking. All of the counties that are outstanding are counties that the president won in 2016. And so if you, again, we're past the polling aspect. I think one of the stories for tonight is that polling is broken. Polling is like Humpty Dumpty. It's smashed into 1,000 pieces. But when you look at the actual votes that are in our modeling for where we're going to win North Carolina.
Jason Miller, thank you for coming on.
All right, let's turn to Chuck real quick. Polling is broken. You just heard it from Jason Miller. He said it's like Humpty Dumpty falling off the wall. Are you ready to declare that verdict?
I got my issues with some state polling, that's for sure. I mean, I think there is definitely an issue in that there's just no quality control with a lot of some of these pollsters you've never heard of and things like this. There's no doubt. We're finally starting to get some Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah, see, you wanted to hear some Arizona? By the way, they did the big dump. I told you that's what they do. We went from 0 to 69%, okay? Just to give you an estimate here, as you see, there's a significant chunk. They're doing what they said they'd do. They said they'd be able to handle both their early vote and some of their same-day vote. They'd be processing it together. And as you could see, we got a big chunk of it already out. And Biden has a good lead here. Savannah, as you know, you could argue that it's a one-county election. Because Maricopa, one instance in the last decade where some statewide candidate lost Maricopa County, which is home of Phoenix, arguably the largest suburb in America, and somehow won statewide, but that person lost about like 1,000 votes. So as you see here, a 10-point lead right now in Maricopa with 77% in. And just so you can see, Donald Trump carried Maricopa. Mitt Romney carried Maricopa. John McCain carried Maricopa. Obviously, he was an Arizona native. So, look.
How much of Maricopa County is in?
77%. Okay. So, this is a good chunk. This is a big lead. Look, they needed something in the Sun Belt right now. I know the Biden folks are feeling a bit antsy. North Carolina's making them antsy. Georgia, we still got a lot of vote for that to come in. We know Florida appears to be gone. I know we haven't officially called that yet. So early on right now, and it's a lot of vote in, Arizona looks like it may actually make pollsters feel better.
Let's turn to Casey on that. I am from Arizona, so I know that, yes, while Maricopa County and Pima County are important, so are all the other counties, and they're largely red counties. What are you hearing, Casey?
Well, Savannah, my sources are saying that they expect, and Chuck touched on this, to have a little bit of a roller coaster here in terms of counting, that it'll look good initially for Joe Biden, that then we may see them start to count some votes that may turn this toward Trump, and then there could be another batch that'll swing us back again. So my sources are urging patience on that front. But I will also say that there does seem to be a difference between how Mark Kelly, who's the Senate candidate in this race, the Democrat, is doing versus how Joe Biden is doing. My Republican and Democratic sources are expecting that Kelly's going to do better than Joe Biden. And I think the big question mark right now is, what is the impact of the Hispanic vote in Arizona? We obviously have talked a lot about the unique qualities of the Cuban American community, the Venezuelan American community in Miami-Dade. Remember, of course, we've talked at length about how that really swung for President Trump. But Democrats think that that swing was big enough. They're nervous that it could replicate itself with other Hispanic communities. They've seen a little bit of it in Texas, and they're concerned about it in Arizona in the context of the presidential race. So I'm watching to see in Arizona if we actually get a split result here, if we see a Democrat win the Senate seat and potentially see President Trump carry the state at the presidential level. Savannah.
All right. Well, they have spent a lot of time, the president's campaign has spent a lot of time in Arizona over the years. We've got a new call to tell you about. It is too early to call in Ohio, but we are characterizing it a bit more, saying that the president is leading. Let's go to David Plouffe and Mike Murphy, two strategists, one Democrat, one Republican. So we've got the whole campaign covered here, although I will say Mike Murphy, Republican, who does not support Donald Trump. Mike, what are you seeing? What is giving you pause tonight?
Well, I think the Democrats wanted a quick knockout in the Sun Belt, particularly in Florida, perhaps in North Carolina or Georgia. And we have to wait on North Carolina or Georgia. But Florida's interesting, even though it looks like Donald Trump is going to be president for life of Miami-Dade County, which is what bailed him out in Florida. Biden did very well switching some swing counties there, which is a good sign, I think, for Arizona. And what I'm seeing in Ohio, which is a tight race with Biden in the hunt in a lean Republican state, is a very good sign for Michigan and Wisconsin and Western Pennsylvania. There's no Miami-Dade County in Michigan, Wisconsin, or Western Pennsylvania. So we just got to wait and count it, and it's going to take a while. But the quick knockout, that's just not going to happen tonight.
David, has there been too much reliance going down the stretch on this Sun Belt strategy, and are the paths now considerably more narrow, or appear to be more narrow for Biden?
Well, I think the Biden campaign is focused like a laser on Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. You had some other states come into play. Look, North Carolina is going to be very close. I think you're going to see a lot of votes still coming in the Atlanta area. That's going to make Georgia close. Arizona, I imagine that will tighten, but the 70% that's in looks good for Biden. So I think Arizona is crucial, obviously. And then I agree with Mike. I look at Ohio. It would be nice to win it, but that was a long shot. What does it tell you about Western Pennsylvania, about parts of Michigan and Wisconsin? And so, yes, this is not going to be an early night. It's not going to be an electoral college landslide. But until you show me numbers that suggest that Donald Trump now is the favorite in Arizona or Pennsylvania, I think Joe Biden still maintains the best route to 270. And the question in Arizona is some of the weakness we see in the Rio Grande Valley and then certainly in Miami-Dade with Hispanic voters. Does any of that carry over to Arizona? And when we really unpack the precincts, we'll get a sense of that.
All right, David and Mike, gentlemen, thanks very much. Before we pause for a quick break, an update from North Carolina's governor's race. And the incumbent, Cooper, will win, will continue to be governor.
All right, and in New Mexico, we've got Joe Biden prevailing in that state. It'll pick up New Mexico's 5 electoral votes. We're back right after this. Good morning. morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school,
what do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school,
what do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding